So I just wanted to start by saying thank you to everyone on the call today. We really appreciate you popping on and taking the time to learn about Cloudpermit and how it's being integrated within the planning submission process here at Huntsville. I'm joined today by Itai, who is one of the many Cloudpermit representatives that have helped the town of Huntsville move into the planning Cloudpermit environment. And as of June 3rd, we are officially live. So all of our application submissions are now coming through the Cloudpermit software. And essentially today's demonstration will show you all how to submit a pre-consultation, and then we'll also go through submitting an application once a pre-consultation is completed. So with that, I'll turn it over to Itai and we'll get started.
Thanks, Madeline, and hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join the call and learn about Cloudpermit and specifically how the town of Huntsville will be using it to process planning applications. So before I share my screen and get into the demonstration, I'll just introduce myself. As Madeline said, my name is Itai. I am a product manager at Cloudpermit, and my job is to, number one, work with our customers, town of Huntsville being one of them, to make sure that our product serves value and really, solves problems. So I look forward to your questions, which I will ask you, save for the end. We will have some time at the end to go through them. But yeah, with that, I will share my screen and we'll go through the Cloudpermit system to discuss how to submit a pre-consultation request to the town of Huntsville. And once we do that, we'll also go through submitting the actual application to the town of Huntsville on Cloudpermit. Okay, so I will share my screen and we'll go through that. So you should be seeing Cloudpermit on your screens right now. This will be a demonstration of a training environment. So in a sense, this is kind of like a carbon copy of the real environment. So everything you will see today will mimic what you will see when you submit your pre-consultation request and applications, but this allows us to submit kind of test applications here. A couple things I will note before actually logging in. So Cloudpermit, as the name suggests, is a cloud-based system. What that means is you can log into Cloudpermit really from anywhere you have an internet connection. So whether that be your computer at the office, whether that be your personal computer that you bring with you, or even your mobile device, you can access Cloudpermit from wherever you are. In addition to that, Cloudpermit is kind of a multi-tenant system, meaning the town of Huntsville is one of our customers, but we do have many others throughout Ontario, throughout Canada, and across North America. So if you do find yourself submitting applications in other neighboring municipalities within Ontario or across North America, you'll be able to use your one Cloudpermit account to submit your application. There's obviously many advantages to that. But I would note that what you're going to see today is the town of Huntsville's forms and kind of processes, but that will be very similar to other municipalities within Ontario. So it does allow you to kind of understand how Cloudpermit works so that next time you do use Cloudpermit, you'll be familiar with it. In addition, the town of Huntsville to the planning applications will also use Cloudpermit for building permits, and also that goes for other municipalities. So while we are discussing planning applications today, your Cloudpermit account will also allow you to submit building permits and other types of applications as well. Okay, so with that, I figure it's good to log in. So I will be using an account here to log in. If you've never used Cloudpermit to submit a building permit or a planning application, you'll have to register for a new account, as you'll see here on the right of your screens. If you've signed up for other types of online accounts, this process is very similar to that. You would register using your email, confirm you have access to that email address, and you're on your way. So I'm going to log in here into my system in Cloudpermit. So for those who have used Cloudpermit, you'll recognize this dashboard pretty well, but for those who've never used Cloudpermit, I'll just give a quick rundown of the dashboard. So the dashboard, as you're seeing on the screen right now, refers to kind of like your home page as soon as you log in. The idea with this is this gives you an understanding of what you need to do on your applications to progress them forward. And each user account will have a different dashboard. And that's because each user may have different types of tasks and requests. So for example, on my screen, you can see here the second one from the list, an invitation to join the application as a property owner. Let's say I am the property owner for a property, and the applicant, let's say the planning consultant I've hired, invites me to join the application as the property owner. I can accept or decline that. So invitations are one examples of tasks. Another example of a task is this one I'm going to highlight here: changes required. When a form, let's say, requires some changes, let's say I filled something out incorrectly on a form and I need to make an update, that's an example of another task. And I'll just call out one last task for a due payment here. I'll just highlight this. This is letting me know that I actually need to make a payment on a permit. So the idea with this task and request list is just to present to you, to each user, a list of things to do to progress your applications forward. And you may or may not see this section at all. If you don't see this section, the task and request section, it means that you've essentially either caught up on all your tasks or don't have any tasks assigned to you. Going to scroll down a little bit. And below that, we're going to see workspaces. So workspaces here, I'll just highlight it right here. Workspaces refers to any application that you're currently working on or have worked on in the past. And the idea is this allows you to search for them. It allows you to filter them. It allows you to sort them. The idea is for you to easily find any application you've ever worked on. So whether you're the applicant, the property owner, the planning consultant, this section here will allow you to find those applications faster. And we could spend a lot longer on how to use this section here. But I would just say, if you just want to type in the address or type in the permit number or even type in the name of the property owner or applicant, this search bar here will allow you to do that. And I'm not going to go through every kind of button you're seeing on this list here. I would just call out our support portal, which will include articles and videos on how to use these tools here. Okay, so that's essentially it for the dashboard. It's really the tasks and requests and the workspaces, those two main sections. Now we're going to get into actually submitting a pre-consultation request. So let's imagine we have a development proposal, we need a community planning permit, and we want to submit the proposal to the town of Huntsville. The entire process starts here at the top right with this big create a new application. And I'm going to act as the applicant and the property owner. And you'll see how that works in just a second. So I'm going to click this create a new application button. This prompts open kind of several steps for me to go through to submit my proposal. So the first step is to select the province. Of course, we're in province of Ontario, and I will select Huntsville from the list of municipalities. As you can see on the list, we have many municipalities in Ontario currently using Cloudpermit. So I've selected Huntsville. The next step is to select the type of application. So whether that's a building permit or a planning application, and of course, I'll select planning. You can see here there's a description box just to let me know some important information. So the town of Huntsville will manage this section here to provide any important information to you as you're submitting your applications. I'll click create a new application, and this pushes me over to the next step, which is to select the category, the scope, and proposed use for my application. And like I said, I'm going to pretend like I need to submit a community planning permit. So in that case, I'll select community planning permit. And again, I just want to call out some descriptions here that the town of Huntsville has access to in terms of managing this information. So as you're submitting your applications, I would go through this information because there's some really helpful information, as you're seeing on the screen here, explaining the difference between the classes for community planning permits. Okay, the next step here is, I guess I will just call out this text here at the bottom where it says, note this application type requires a pre-consultation before a permit application can be submitted. Essentially what this is saying is before I can actually submit my application for the community planning permit, I have to go through a pre-consultation with the town of Huntsville. So I'll proceed to the next step. And in this step, this is where I select what's called the project. And this is important because the community planning permit might just be one type of application we require for a development proposal. Let's say we needed another type of application, whatever it may be. If we want to put both of those applications into the same project, we can. If not, we can separate them. But the point is, this will allow you to stay on track and kind of manage the project as a whole by putting the similar or related applications into the same project. So in this case, I'm just going to create a new project, and we're going to call this redevelopment project. We're going to proceed to the next step. The next step pushes us over to the mapping section where I have to identify a property on the map. So whether I want to type in the address, the roll number into the search bar, or simply manually navigate on the screen and select the parcel, I'm going to select this parcel as an example. And when I do that, you can see address, property details, and other relevant information pops up. So what that means is I don't actually have to type this in. Cloudpermit through a GIS integration will pull this information for you. All right, we're going to proceed to the next step. This is kind of a summary, just basically like a checkout. Let's say you're on Amazon or other types of online shopping services that just allows you to confirm that all the information is correct. So you can see the address, the type of application, and the approval authority being the Town of Huntsville Planning Department. Okay, we'll click Finish and Create. And this pushes us over into now a draft workspace, the draft pre-consultation request. And you can see the header, of course, has the address. We can show the map, some other details here. But essentially where we're going to work is the bottom half of this workspace. So number one, I just want to call out again some helpful description text for you here. I'm going to highlight it. This is where the Town of Huntsville can again kind of provide some important information for you as you fill out these pre-consultation requests. And before I jump into actually submitting this, I would just mention, I'll call this out here. You can see request pre-consultation is grayed out. The reason for that is because I, as the applicant, have to fulfill some requirements that the Town of Huntsville has set out before I can request my pre-consultation. And so that may be a form, it may be a concept sketch plan that needs to be uploaded, but essentially until I provide what the Town of Huntsville has identified, I can't request my pre-consultation. So let's just go through that. Number one, I'm just going to go through the party roles. It looks like we have everybody we need. The applicant is there, of course, being me, because I've created the workspace. So we're good on the parties to the application. Moving into the project data, you can see here there's a pre-consultation form that's missing mandatory fields. So what we're going to do is just open this up and we'll actually fill out this form. So you can see relatively short form, but it is a little bit interactive, as you'll see in just a second. So number one, I have to fill out this pre-consultation information here. Have you had a pre-consultation meeting and or received a record of pre-consultation for this project? If the answer is yes, I have to provide the meeting details, how the meeting took place. If the answer is no, I have to provide the description for the project and some additional information. So I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to say this is my description. Current official plan designation is residential. And again, you can see Huntsville is providing you through this form some links and additional helpful information to fill out your pre-consultation form. So I'm really just going to type in some testing information here just so we can proceed forward. But of course, you would provide the relevant information for each one of these sections. As I'm doing this, I'll just call out that I will call out the red asterisk buttons next to the various sections here. And basically what that refers to is those fields are required. So the idea is you have to fill out these fields, otherwise the form will be incomplete. Okay, so I'll just click sign off just to sign off. And once I'm done with the form, I can click this button, Close Forms, and go to the workspace. Okay, so now the forms are done. No more missing mandatory fields. There's now a concept sketch plan, concept sketch that I need to upload. So uploading drawings on Cloudpermit is pretty easy. There's a couple ways to do it. As you're seeing on the screen here, you can drag and drop files, or you can actually click this blue text here to select a file from your computer. So I'll just upload a drawing and I'll say concept sketch to identify the requirement. I can put in an optional drawing number and description if I want to, but that is optional, so I'll just leave that out for now. I'll click done, and you can see once I've taken care of those required, once I've taken care of those requirements, the forms, the attachments, I can now request my pre-consultation. So with that, I'll click request pre-consultation, and a couple things happen. Number one, I get a confirmation email to let me know that I've successfully submitted my pre-consultation requests. And number two, the status of this workspace now goes into this requested status. So with that, the process is basically out of my hands as the applicant. It now goes to Madeline and her team to process the pre-consultation. And really, anytime there's any update on the workspace, you as the applicant or the property owner will receive automatic emails to update you. There's one other thing I'm just going to call out before turning it to Madeline to provide some detail on what happens at this point. You do always have access to a message portal. So you can see here when I click show messages, this will allow me to send a message to the Town of Huntsville Planning Department to really ask a question or provide some detail otherwise that wasn't provided in the workspace. And this is a very, very efficient way to communicate for both sides of the application. So highly recommend you use this message portal to your advantage to communicate with the Town of Huntsville. With that, Madeline, maybe I'll just turn it over to you just to discuss what happens once a pre-consultation request is submitted.
Thank you, Itai. Yes, so once a pre-consultation request is submitted, um, our planning staff will receive that new workspace as a submitted pre-consultation. What staff will then do is if it's a brand new pre-consultation that has never been reviewed before, we'll review the workspace and we'll set up a pre-consultation bill. So once we set that fee, you'll get an email letting you know that there's a fee associated with the application that you've submitted for pre-consultation. And you can then go ahead and follow the prompts, and there's some instructions on the direct contact to call to make that payment. Once that payment is made, we consider the pre-consultation completely submitted, and it'll be assigned to a member on our team. And there's a results section that we will input our findings and any comments that you would need to know, and that would all be located within the workspace. Additionally, some of our pre-consultations are more formal, where we request external agencies and some of our internal departments to attend to also provide comments to the applicant. In that scenario, we would set up a meeting, and that meeting date and link would be set up in Cloudpermit, and then you would be provided an email with all of that information the second that it's set up. And then we would just proceed with the pre-consultation and providing you with information as usual. If it's a pre-consultation that has already been completed outside of Cloudpermit, there's that option when you're filling out your pre-consultation form to select that, yes, you've already completed a pre-consultation. So generally, records of pre-consultation are provided by town staff in an email. That was our format prior to Cloudpermit. So if you had received a record of pre-consultation in email format, we will be looking out for an additional attachment additionally to the concept sketch that would be the record of pre-consultation. And there's an attachment type that you can select that's called record of pre-consultation. Once staff have either completed the pre-consultation or have recognized that you've already completed a pre-consultation, staff will create a draft application, and that application will set up the required application type and the required submission material documents. So maybe with that, Itai, I'll pass it back over to you, but generally that's the way that pre-consultation process is working. It allows us to fully review the development proposal and then set up the most appropriate application type and attachment requirements. That way the applicant knows exactly what's expected of them throughout the process.
Okay, thanks, Madeline. As Madeline mentioned, I will go through what happens once the pre-consultation is completed. So essentially what happens after, right? When you want to submit your full application. Before I do that, just want to call out one final thing on the pre-consultation. You do have the ability to withdraw the request. However, I would just say that when you actually go through this, it doesn't actually withdraw the request. It requests to withdraw your pre-consultation. Madeline and her team will review the request for withdrawal, and then if accepted, the pre-consultation will be withdrawn. Just wanted to call that out in case you, let's say, submit an error or submit too early or want to make some modifications to your pre-consultation request, you do have that option. Okay, with that, I'm going to log out and just find an application and discuss how to submit that. Okay, I'm just logging into my other account and I will share my screen. Okay, so we should see Cloudpermit again here. What has happened in this example, the pre-consultation has been completed and Madeline or someone from her team has, as she mentioned earlier, identified the required studies or attachments, the forms, and the actual type of application, and sent it back to the applicant to fill that out and provide that and submit it. So I'll just show you here. You can see there's the pre-consultation section, which we just went through. As Madeline said, there's a results section, which you can always consult and see here. I'll just scroll down to the bottom. You can see even a fee was paid, as Madeline mentioned. There was even a meeting that took place on this date. And so the point is, let's say the pre-consultation happened 2 months ago or 3 months ago, you can always consult the pre-consultation information through the workspace here. So with that, we'll go over into the application section. And in this scenario, I now, as the applicant, have to, again, fulfill requirements set out by the planning department to be able to sign off and submit my application. So the process is essentially the same as what it was in the pre-consultation. The only difference is the information will change. So for example, now I need to identify a property owner. So the system's telling me here, add the required application parties, the property owner. So I have a couple options. Number one, if this John Doe, being myself, is the applicant and the property owner, I can assign the property owner role to myself. But let's say the scenario is that I'm the planning consultant, I'm the applicant, and I want to invite my property owner who hired me to manage the application for them. It's pretty easy to do that. There's an add or invite party button where you can put in the email address of that person. So I'll just put in a test email address. And before I send this request out, just want to call out a couple additional features here. So let's say you want to grant the property owner the ability to modify the application and add new applications to the party. New applications to the project. This is where you would do that, these permissions here. And of course, you would select the property owner role from that section. You can even put in a personal message to the person you're inviting. So whatever you want to put in there, you can, and you can send the invite. What happens once you do that, that person would, of course, receive an email. The email would have a link to either create the Cloudpermit account if they haven't done so already. And if they do have an account, it'll allow them to accept the invite right away. It's also, as you saw earlier in my presentation, going to add in a task on that user's dashboard to join the application as the property owner. So this is how you invite someone digitally to join the application. And there's several advantages to this because number one, the property owner will have access to the workspace to respond to anything they need to. They're also going to be notified of the updates on the application, so there shouldn't be this broken telephone or delays in communication because the property owner will be notified of anything that I, as the applicant, will. Okay, you might be asking yourself, well, what if the property owner doesn't have an email address, or what if they don't want to use the computer? Well, that's okay as well, because that scenario is accommodated for through this text box here, or sorry, this checkbox here, the input details manually and add the party immediately. When you check off this box, Cloudpermit will ask you to give the information of the property owner through these sections here. And the idea is you still have to identify the property owner, but the property owner will not be sent an email invite as opposed to when you put in their email address here. So whether they use an email, whether they use a computer or not, it doesn't really matter. The point is their information has to be collected one way or another. So I'm going to click cancel and just assign the property owner role to myself. Oh, let me just see what's going on here. Oh, I know what the issue is. Okay, let me just assign the property owner role manually here. We'll just say that this is Joe Smith, lives at 123 Main Street. Just fill in a couple other required details. Put in a phone number quickly, and we'll select property owner. Oh, that's right. I was signed in under the wrong account. That's what was happening. Because I was logging in under my applicant account. Let me just pull up the application again quickly. Okay, let's assign this person the property owner role. Okay, perfect. So now that we've assigned the required parties, you can see a green check mark. Next, we'll move on to the forms, which again is going to be very similar to what you've seen in the pre-consultation section. So a couple missing mandatory fields we'll just go through. As you're seeing here, and I'm not going to go through each section, but this is the Town of Huntsville's community planning permit application form. So you'll have to go through this and fill this out. Some of these are check boxes. Some of these are text boxes for you to fill in some information. So quickly just add in. And Madeline, as I'm filling this out, maybe is there anything that the public should be aware of as they're filling out these forms? Like, for example, if they don't have the information for certain sections, or are you looking for any type of information on some of the sections?
Yeah, that's great, Itai. Thank you. So one thing with these forms is that they will autosave. So if there's any information that you don't know and you need to move out of the form to find that information or come back to it at another time, um, that information will autosave within the form. So you don't have to worry about refilling out any of the application information. If there's anything that you really don't know, you can always put unaware or not applicable. And that's something that staff may either follow up with further question about, or we may have that information on hand. And if there's any questions, again, as Itai mentioned, you can always use that messaging function tool, and that will prompt us that you do have a question, and we can respond to you within that chat.
Thanks, Madeline. I just have to sign off on the form quickly. I'm just doing that here. 1 second here. So very quickly. Okay, let's go into the form again. Okay, so this form has now been completed. We'll proceed over to the next form. So you see at the bottom right, there was a next form button, a purpose and effect. Madeline, I guess maybe excuse the pun here, the purpose and effect of this form. Is this a additional form for the community planning permit?
Thanks, Itai. So essentially, this is just an additional form, more or less for reporting purposes. So we ask that, applicants don't worry too much about the density and number of units. Those aren't mandatory required fields, but just to ensure that staff have the best understanding of the proposal, we've asked that the proposal be described for the purpose and for the effect of the application. It's just more additional information for staff to look at when they're completing their review.
Great. Okay, and so once we're done with the forms, Cloudpermit will prompt open this close forms and go to workspace button, which will now complete the application form section. So as you saw in the pre-consultation section, there's some required attachments that need to be uploaded. In this case, because this is an application, the system is saying I need a parcel registry, property sketch, and site plan. These requirements may or may not change depending on your application, depending on what was discussed at the pre-consultation, or even the type of application. So community planning permit might ask
Here's
for
what I found.
Certain attachments, while a different type of application might ask for other types of attachments. Okay, so you can see here, I've uploaded one drawing and I've tagged it as all of the required attachments. Madeline, is there a preferred way to do this? Like, did you want applicants to separate drawings into separate attachments, or is it okay to kind of provide a set of drawings in one attachment?
So thank you, Itai. We would prefer separate attachments. It just makes it easier when it comes to reviewing and providing comments for specific attachments. So if possible, separating attachments would be ideal. If not, that's okay too. However, ideally, we would like them in separate attachments.
Okay, great. And finally, we'll move into the sign-off section. So you can see here, Cloudpermit is requiring us to sign off on some information. So there is the ability to digitally sign off on several of these sections. So you can see 2 sections that have been signed off digitally. However, as per the Planning Act, and Madeline, correct me if I'm wrong here, this is a Planning Act requirement for the affidavit process to be handled manually. So Cloudpermit will allow you or the applicant, if it's someone else, to download a pre-filled affidavit that then has to be commissioned and signed off outside of our system, and then the signed version to be re-uploaded onto Cloudpermit. Madeline, is that right? This is a Planning Act requirement.
Yep, that's exactly right, Itai, and very similar to our current process. It just looks a little bit different. Additionally, I'll just mention that the affidavit that gets downloaded now has the full application attached. So maybe Itai, if you just want to download that affidavit form and we can open it up. If that application form is being commissioned by a commissioner outside of the town of Huntsville, they can now see the full application and be able to appropriately commission that document.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the affidavit, the pre-filled affidavit I just downloaded. And you can see here, a lot of this stuff is pre-filled. So everything I've already filled out is captured. The only outstanding section is this sworn declaration, the commissioner section here that would have to be done outside of our system, that would then get scanned and uploaded back onto Cloudpermit. So of course, I'm going to pretend like I've now gotten this commissioned and signed and scanned, and back onto Cloudpermit, we'll go ahead and upload our filled out affidavit. So let's just pretend like that's the uploaded affidavit. And with that, I can submit my application. Again, similar to the pre-consultation section, as soon as I submit, I will receive a confirmation email to let me know that I've submitted my community planning permit application. And again, reminder that you do have the message feature here to communicate with the town of Huntsville throughout this process. So with that, Madeline, I guess I'll turn it to you to discuss the review process, or at least what to expect once an application is submitted. But yeah.
Thank you, Itai. That was a great demonstration. So once an application is submitted, again, like the pre-consultation, the appropriate fee will be set, and you'll get an email with what that application fee amount is. Once it's intaken by our administration staff, it will be assigned an application number that you'll have direct access to view, and then it'll be assigned to a member on our team. We'll then go through our typical review process. Essentially, it's just going to look different, but it's going to be exactly the same. So as we move throughout the process, you will get email notifications as to what step we are in the review. If there's comments that we have or revisions to any type of attachments that we need, we can notify you through the Cloudpermit system. Again, that messaging system is always available, so you're welcome to use that. And as any uploaded documents can be made available. And in addition, if we need to circulate the application to any external or internal departments, we can do so through the Cloudpermit workspace, and you would have availability to see their comments because everything would live within the Cloudpermit workspace. So I think that's all I'll say, to not get too much into the weeds of the review process and all the different steps, but staff are here to help answer any questions that you have and work with you throughout the process. So please reach out. We're happy to do so.
Thanks, Madeline. And I guess one final detail just to share from Cloudpermit, we do have a support portal that's available to you when you click the support button once you log into Cloudpermit. That will allow you to submit tickets to us if you have technical questions, technical difficulties, like issues like, let's say you're trying to submit an application and for some reason the submit button isn't working, or you can't fill out a form, whatever it may be from a technical perspective, Cloudpermit is here to answer. But in terms of process related questions, like what is the purpose of a community planning permit, that is not within our discretion to answer. So for those questions, I would direct you to the town of Huntsville. But any technical related questions, please feel free to submit tickets to us.